Hi, our guest today is Christopher Morin, Chairman of the Milford Finance Committee. Chris, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Chris.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
We wanted to have you on after the October special town meeting. Just talk about some of the things that happened. You must be very pleased with the way the meeting went.
Oh, I couldn't be happier with the meeting went, and it was the way we forecasted it. You know, with all the articles going the way they went and all the amounts talked about previously. So, and especially the duration of the meeting was actually, everyone was very happy about, because it was a quick meeting. It was good.
2-hour meeting with only 90 minutes of that was actually the articles, and a half an hour with some briefings in advance, including yourself.
Yeah, I was the long-winded one, I know.
Oh, wow.
we could have been under 2 hours if it wasn't for
I
me,
actually
so.
have your PowerPoint right here with me, and
Yeah.
so let's look at some of these things. You left the meeting with $3.2 million in excess levy capacity, which if people don't get is money you legally can tax,
But you
don't.
Right.
Yep.
And $1.8 million in free cash, meaning basically if you have an emergency, you have cash sitting there, not budgeted for anything but just sitting there.
Yeah, and I know that people look at those numbers and they're very large numbers. First of all,
they're not large compared to your budget, though. They're large, they're large compared to the smaller towns nearby.
Yeah, no question.
They're not large compared to you running this is again your presentation, $102.6 million.
Yeah, we're over $100 million.
Budget.
Yep, it's an amazing.
Having $1.8 million.
Well, and that's $1.8
extra.
million after we did all the things we did at the town meeting. We did a lot of things. We did purchases of fire trucks. We did a funding of certain funds, revenue funds.
As my headline said, $9.5 million in 90 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we spent $10 million in 90 minutes, but it was all good spending, and a lot of it, you know, we did some planning in the future that would save us things about like the bonds. Maybe we'll talk about later.
All
on.
of the bonds, putting $1 million in the pension fund to lower that unfunded thing.
All those things. So yeah, we did spend $10 million, and then the end result would be, as you mentioned earlier,
But you had it.
Which is $3.2 million in excess levy capacity. And as you mentioned, what that is the town, obviously with the 2.5%, you can go up from year to year. There is an amount, that's the max you can tax to. We are $3.2 million below that. Because of the great financial planning by our department heads, our financial team, we don't feel the need that we need to get every drop of blood from our taxpayers and still provide the services that they deserve.
In fact, you also put $2.4 million. I don't know how you actually say it. You're not putting it in the budget.
No, yeah,
You're using it to lower how much you could have taxed people.
Exactly. So what it is we used the free cash, and technically we would only have $800,000 in excess levy capacity. But because we put that $2.4 million in free cash toward it,
you have 3.2.
Now we have the 3.2 exactly.
Now that's not going to give people, a big break on the tax. I mean, if you divide it among the tax base,
there's no question.
Your own property taxes might get lowered $2 or $3.
Yeah, it's also because we've been doing it for so long. We're actually maintaining the status quo because we have set a precedence of putting money towards the tax rate.
But you also don't want people to think, hey, I'm going to get like, $200 or $300 off my tax bill.
There's no question, because it's still, you have the 2.5% increase, plus valuations are continuing to go up.
And residential did go up.
And residential went up considerably. So really what this is doing is just helping so that your tax bill doesn't go up as much. So,
correct.
You're trying to minimize the increase.
Exactly.
Essentially what's happening here.
It's going up less than it could have.
That's exactly right. And you know what? And it's fair with the financial position that we're in that the taxpayers do get that relief, because if there's no need to spend the money and to tax our taxpayers, I am of the belief, and I know that is shared with a lot of people, that you don't need to, you don't have to.
I mean, you're
the other way around. If you don't have to, you don't need to. So.
Well, you're the chair of the Finance Committee now. Your vice chair, Al Crier, has a great way of phrasing it, which is, if I want to spend my $2.50 every morning on a cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee that he drinks while driving to work, it's his $2.50, and it's his decision.
Yep.
He doesn't want you to buy him a cup of coffee with it.
No, there's no question. But I mean, municipal government, there are responsibilities and services that we have to provide. And, and then there are things that are luxuries, things like fields are luxury, certain things. And, we provide the services that need to be done. We have some luxuries, but beyond that, we run a pretty tight ship.
And
so.
you
and have for years.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
And that's the reason why you can
you
do
know,
it today.
I can't echo that enough. It's not what this current finance committee,
over
this
years.
town meeting, and this selectmen have done. It's from years back, and the precedence that has been set.
It's sort of ingrained in the culture.
No, there's no question.
You put money away, you spend wisely, you lower debt.
Yeah.
And I mean, the prime example is on the day before Halloween, you had the formal dedication of the new Woodland Elementary School.
Yeah.
You bonded
28 million.
28 roughly million of the cost. The rest of it you paid cash, including $1 million at this town meeting.
Yep.
So you're bonding 28 million at a ridiculously low interest rate.
Yeah. You
have money in stabilization that if, God forbid, the budget gets tighter, half the town burns down, you could take it out of stabilization to pay the debt service.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a stabilization, that's for the viewers, the long-term savings account, that has more money in it than some of the neighboring towns spend in a year.
That's absolutely correct.
I mean, with what you put in at that town meeting, you're well over 18 million in that account.
It's 18 plus,
in the two accounts.
Yeah.
Because you have a little one and a big one.
Yeah.
Which means you have 18% of your current budget just about in stabilization.
That's correct.
Which
and then we have other reserve. Yeah, there's no question. And that's, well, one of the reasons that we got the ridiculously low rate for the Woodland is because of our stabilization funds and because of our liquid assets. And they look at it and they look at our Moody's rating and everything else that's created by this stuff, and it says, that they're a good loan, and that's why you achieve the rates you get.
And what I love is the banks actually bid where they paid the town money to get that loan.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think you got $900,000 from the bank as a bonus.
Now, is there any
for borrowing from them, which I find staggering?
Is there any downside to being so well financed, well funded?
I want to say no, but of course, but that's not entirely true.
There are some.
Well, at some point, the unions are going to say, "Don't tell me you can only give me 2%."
No, when the state talks about giving grants and things like that, they look at the situation in the town and they go, "Oh, wait a second. You don't get any overburdened aid. You're well managed. You're well funded.
We're not eligible for community development block grants anymore. But that's more a function of the populace in town than the budget.
Yes. What I see is the biggest, I don't want to say negative of having a healthy downside, is that when people see that, people tend to think more grand schemes for their projects. Projects that went from basic projects now become, whoa, why don't we put a parking lot next to it now? Or why don't we do this? Or why don't we do that?
Or for example, why don't we do all of the rest of the Godfrey Brook culvert repair and pay cash for it?
Yeah.
At the tune of $10 million.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I would hope it would only be $10 million. That's a project that will never end, and that is a project that we're going to be tackling from years, and our stabilization fund will be a great aid in helping to tackle
that. Or let's rebuild all the roads that need rebuilding.
Yep, exactly. So if there is
the other downside, candidly, is when you have even $1.8 million going into next May's town meeting, is somebody's already said, boy, I've got a project that can eat up $500,000 of that cash.
Absolutely.
And they have the money sitting there.
Yep, and it's hard to tell someone, no, this project isn't going to happen now, or we don't deem it worthy at this time, when they're looking at it and they're seeing it, the funds are available there. Why are you telling me that this is not? Because
and what's the finance committee motto? There's a new school coming.
There's a new school coming.
Haven't they already raised the specter of 20 to 30 million to renovate the high school because it's now, 40 years old?
Well, I know that the school committee obviously has just finished their long-term educational plan, and that ended pretty much on Sunday, to be honest with you. That was the conclusion of a long-term educational
and you got Middle East now needs to get renovated.
Yep.
So it does not end, does it?
No, it doesn't. But, they're going to be introducing a new long-term educational plan. And, just seeing what has always been done, I can only conclude that long-term educational plan is going to end with a big project. And I think anyone with any common sense is going to come to say that there's going to be something that happens at the high school.
And I would assume that includes shifting part of what's at the high school to middle school east.
Well, I mean, I think there are a lot of theories on what could happen. The only thing that I tell people is that just remember Woodland took about 12 years to get done once we finally said we were going to do it. By the time you get through the planning process, MSBA, construction, everything else. So anyone who thinks that something's happening at the high school in the next 4 or 5 years, I think
No, it would probably take 10 years just to plan it.
exactly. I think they're living in la la land. So.
But also,
Wow,
quite honestly, that process kind of conditions the public it's coming. Lets people document the need if it is there, and lets people plan the financial aspect of it. So, I mean, just Zach Taylor, the finance director, gave you guys an update at one of your meetings where he said, let's look at where we were 4 years ago when we broke ground on Woodland, or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We anticipated borrowing $33 million. We borrowed $28. We anticipated 5% interest. It was less than 2. We anticipated this, it's this.
Yeah.
So things change over time.
Of course they do. And one of the big things that we do is when we look at any project, and especially a $60 million school, we like to vet the project. We like to look at it. We like to research it. We like the department heads to bring that back. That's one of the negatives that we see is when people come in at these last second, oh, we want to do this here.
Well, you had good people in charge of that project.
Yes. No. Oh, I mean,
I don't know if people realize that's $2 million or $3 million under budget.
2 and some change, and overscoped. Overscoped.
Right.
And that's a huge thing. So if you add in what was done that they didn't even plan for, they probably were close to $4 million under.
And I just heard there was, in tearing down the old building, you found some oil the committee found oil contamination.
Yeah, there was a
from underground fuel tanks, and that was cleaned up at no.
Yeah.
It was still $2 million under.
Yeah,
budget.
it was. I don't know how long this show. It's a half-hour show.
Yeah.
But I would need another 45 minutes just to sing the praises of Jonathan Bruce, Aldo Chakey, and the
And the
entire
rest of the committee.
Woodland Building Committee. I mean, just amazing.
And Aldo and John,
work.
to their credit, give praise to everybody.
Well, and that's just the gentlemen that they are, and that's what they always do. But I'm sorry, I am going to take away what they're saying. Those two, head and shoulders, led that committee. And
In
they
fact,
were there constantly.
Their joke is you want to make us the permanent building committee.
Well, no, I think that was my joke. I think neither one of them want to do it again. But as a matter of fact, I emailed both of them, congratulating them on the closing and told them to rest up for the high school.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I told them they deserved a break. I said you can have a break to the high school because they are going to be our permanent building committee members.
Having been through that myself, I know exactly.
Well, yeah,
what-
I mean,
Well, I'm sure that if it was like the one I went through, you're at the site every other day.
And they were. I mean,
Every
I would.
They
other
live
day.
there.
I drop my kid off there every day. I see Jonathan's car, and he's out there in his boots walking around. And I saw Aldo's truck, and those two, the work that they did, this town could not pay back the debt we owe the two of them.
I mean, John made it a full-time job.
Oh yeah,
And so did Aldo, but Aldo's retired.
There's no question. And and when you get a chance to go through the school, and I know a lot of the public got to on Sunday, and hopefully they'll have another day, maybe in the summer or whenever when school. When the kids aren't in there.
It's fantastic.
It is mind-boggling. I mean, I couldn't even imagine going to school in a school like that when I was a child. Just
It's like a brand new college
individualized
facility.
room. It is.
It's
And
like, when you take your kid off and when you're paying $60,000 a year and you go look at that new science lab.
Yep.
That's what this reminds me of.
Yeah.
To me, it's a college-level major facility.
Yeah, and I was thrilled. My son, actually, who was there during the building process, because he was in 4th grade last year, so he saw it. I was thrilled that he got 1 year. He was able to enjoy 1 year in Stacy School. And he goes, Daddy, this is crazy. He goes, is this what all schools are supposed to look like? He goes, I know our old school was bad. I said, I enjoy it, buddy, because you're never going to see another school like this. It's just, it's a masterpiece.
It is.
So
switch
Well, you never
gears.
know. He may.
yeah, he may.
He may.
He may.
Let's switch gears for a minute. The town meeting's over. This fiscal year is pretty much set financially.
Yeah, unless this is some sort of emergency, we're done.
And I was going to say, what's on the horizon that you as Finance Committee Chairman see? But besides the normal everyday budgets, what's coming down the road in the next year and a half?
There's quite a few things. I mean, you brought up one earlier with the Godfrey Brook. That project is always going to throw obstacles in front of us. I'm always prepared for something to go wrong there, and I'm always waiting for the town engineer.
The last two parts were aided by federal grants.
Oh yes, exactly. And we actually have our town engineer coming, Mike Dean, who's the new engineer, coming to our next meeting. And I think one of the questions will be, we're going to want an update on where we stand on a lot of those projects.
You've got the Route 16 from Water Street towards Hopedale project in about a year with the widening of the intersection at 16 and 140 is part of that. That's really, the majority of that is state funding, with us paying for the rest of the planning and the land taking. The land taking money, a lot of it was put aside just now.
I don't see
another
any
engineering
huge,
bill to pay for, but
I don't see any huge expenditures there. I see, as I mentioned, Godfrey Brook. I see
the addition that they're going to start on the sewer plant was paid for at last May's annual town meeting, even though they're not breaking ground until next May.
Yep. And that was going to lead into one of the next thing I was going to say, is that obviously, we have a lot of talk about the water company. A lot of that's done in executive session, so I'm not going to talk into any of that. But
but all they're doing now is arguing the value.
Exactly.
When the value is established, it is going to be presented to the town.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something we certainly need to look closely at, because that number is going to be a very large number, and I think it's incumbent upon the people who are negotiating this and talking about the funding for it, that we find a way that we're going to fit this within the current rate structure. I think it's hard.
Well, the premise was that the current water bills would be enough to pay for whatever it costs to buy it.
And I would think that would absolutely be the case, but until we get to a final number, obviously you can't say that.
And the argument I hear from people is, well, then we have to pay to fix the pipes, but what they don't realize is they're already paying for that.
But plus whatever they tack on in profit. So to be honest with you, for us to fix the pipes, it's going to be cheaper than for them to fix the pipes. So
it's actually going to be cheaper for the town to run the water company than it is for the water company to run the water company.
There's no question between the $900,000 a year we pay in hydrant costs. I don't think anyone realized we pay almost $1 million just to have hydrants.
That goes away.
The taxes that they need to make, and their profit that they need to pay to their shareholders, all that stuff
and
you
the
lop
property
off,
taxes that they do pay go away.
All that stuff that you lop off the top, that now would be available.
And despite their past expenses, they did make over $1 million last year in pure profit.
Of course they did.
For the first time in years.
Well, they're not in the business to give away money.
Yeah.
No.
But also through their construction companies, which are, brother
Doing
and sister companies,
yes.
and it's certainly a very profitable business owning the water company.
So what's beyond? That's its own project by itself.
No question. Stormwater scares me. That's something that people have been hearing about. We've been dealing on a yearly basis. Just getting our permits, cleaning out the basins. The issue with contamination of the Charles River, in which Bellingham, Franklin, and Milford are facing.
That could be the so-called rain tax that we hear about.
Oh, it could. It
could be significant.
It could potentially bankrupt the town, and I know that people think I'm being dramatic. I'm not.
No, it could.
When you talk about
because Mike Santora, the town engineer, came up with a figure a couple of years ago that the EPA disputed, and then if you remember, the EPA hired a consulting company to verify it, and they came up at Mike's number.
Yeah.
So the town was correct at 100 and something million 4 years ago.
Yeah. That is just, and anyone who would ever think that a municipality could be charged that and find any way to pay it is ridiculous. But that's something, and I know obviously it won't be to that scale, but still, even if it's a smaller scale, even if it's a fraction of that, that's a large amount of money, and that's something that I worry about.
Well, even if it's 4 or 5%. You could eat up your free cash just in a New York second.
Yep, exactly.
And
well, the problem with it is what they're talking about is taxing people based on the amount of roof and driveway and sidewalk they have.
Impervious
which doesn't really affect a homeowner that much.
It can.
But imagine let's look at the Kmart
parking lot.
The Kohl's parking lot, the Target parking lot.
Well, they'd have the guy who owns that's going to have to dig up the parking lot and re-engineer
and
the whole
charge his tenants higher rent.
Bingo, higher rent.
And they charge higher prices.
It's a mind-boggling, and the problem is that they're arbitrary and capricious about the way they handle it.
Yeah.
That's what irritates me more than anything.
I actually saw a new. I actually saw a new military acronym, or new to me, the other day, which is BOHICA, which very politely says, "Bend over, here it comes again."
Yeah. And I guess that's what irritates me more than anything. They're arbitrary and capricious about it. Some guy in some little room someplace says, "Oh, you're getting some phosphates in here from someplace. We need to solve that problem." When okay, let's make all these regulations. We're going to legislate.
Well, in this case, it's people sitting up in Newton.
And the problem is when you look at where the phosphates come from, they don't come from here.
Of course they don't come from here.
So you are being punished, or this area is being punished for something that's happening downstream.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just absolutely, and you look at a town like Milford, who is so well run and who has gone to great pains to save money and to do it the right way, and now all of a sudden, you know, you guys aren't doing it. We're going to come and get some of that money because it's sitting there.
Yeah.
But the good news is at least the dredging of Milford Pond removed some of that phosphate load.
It did, and that was a very large project, and that was one of the big benefits of doing that. You know, in the DEP and the EPA were both extremely happy about the results of what the Corps of Engineers had done with that.
And I hate to predict, but with Archer Rubber about to tear down its 5-acre facility out there,
Stand by.
at least that will that site will be remediated.
Yeah.
And that will clean up more of the issue, since most people don't realize that building sits on top of the Charles River.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because the owner is responsible for the remediation of it.
Yes. And the owner wants to redevelop the land now that they've shipped the business to North Carolina.
Right,
Yep.
right.
And so the owner has to clean up the site
Oh,
before they can lease it out.
well, they can't do
But that
anything.
also opens up 5 acres of commercial land for redevelopment.
And hey, and I love you know, a redevelopment in Milford. I love seeing businesses come to this town. I think that's, you know, we're lucky, and that's one of the benefits of
You've got water, sewer, and highway.
Exactly. Of having the infrastructure that we have is that businesses want to come here. We're attractive to business. And then on the other end, financially, the town gains from having those
There is one
commercial
small issue about moving a business to Milford. It's the double tax rate.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question.
That'll never change, but
That is something that will never change,
Never
and
be-
I would
never-
never be in favor of that. It would devastate the home owners
number one.
and the residents of Milford if all of a sudden everyone's tax bill went to $10,000, $12,000.
But I think the people don't realize all the time that local business is subsidizing their property taxes
Absolutely.
in a big way.
in a huge way,
By about 1.6.
even a little business.
About 1.6%.
And
1.6 times, excuse me, no, 1.6%.
and I think people don't realize it. The other hand is not only, but you know, I remember when that happened in the 80s, was property taxes were climbing very high, and so the town did the shift. Here's the problem. Eventually, over time, property taxes will creep up. Not that high again, but they will creep up. You don't have that shift to go to this time to lower it.
Right.
No, there's no question. And then also that when we do tax relief, they like that $2.4 million, most of the benefit will
to
go to the
businesses.
commercial, to the businesses.
As it should, because they're paying it.
There's no question, but that's why, you know, on one end you're paying more, and on the other end, obviously, when any relief that we do, they get the predominance of that. So.
But I
Which
think
is
people,
a good thing.
Of
people
course.
need to realize, though, I think that, well, it doesn't hurt a Target or a Kohl's,
Yep.
the big box stores.
Yep.
The mom and pop guys get hit by this tremendously. People, well, actually, you
I was
were
gonna
I was,
say,
just-
yeah.
I was going to say,
you
as
own
a-
a building downtown.
as a small
so,
businessman in Milford,
you know, when you hear
no
that
question.
somebody, you know, I don't want to use their name, but there was a gentleman who runs a repair garage on Route 140 heading to Upton, who came before the selectmen 3 years ago and basically said the first $100 of profit every day, 6 days a week, goes to pay his property taxes to Milford. That's
Absolutely.
significant.
Oh, of course it is, and that, you know, it's a lot of money, and there really, unfortunately, there's no real way to
can't go
get
around
around it.
No.
And I could sit here and try to make up some fancy excuse for you, or a reason, or thing that we could do to solve that
No,
problem.
but as Al lives in
but
Upton,
I'm an
and
honest person. It's just
But as
that's
Al
the
lives
way
in
it
Upton
is,
and I live in Mendon, you have
Yep.
services we only dream of having.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but just between trash pickup, leaf pickup, you know, the transfer station and how much they take down there, just our parks. I mean, it's
Paul
just,
Mazzucchelli says, I think you're one of like less than 10 cities and towns left in Massachusetts that pays for trash pickup through the tax rate.
absolutely. And I would fight to never see that go away. As what, you know, someone who sits in that chair a lot, Al Crier always calls the designer trash bags, that you go and you're going to go down there and you're going to spend $8 for a garbage bag that you're going to put your trash in. No, we're not going to do that in Milford. We're going to find the best way that our taxpayers can get that service, and they continue to get that. And that's, I know it sounds silly, but that's something that is very important to me.
Well,
and I think a lot of people appreciate the fact that they're not throwing their garbage, you know, in
It's-
these
it's
designer
not
trash,
another-
or they're throwing them in the back of their cars.
It's
or,
not another
or
$5,
another
$6,
tax.
$8, $10, $12.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, in Mendon, I'm paying $200 something a year.
Yeah.
for that privilege of putting out my my one garbage.
And all
can
that
a
is
week.
that they're just not. It's the same as a tax. They're just not throwing it on your tax bill.
Right.
They're just breaking it up into small increments.
Well, in small, one of the
You
things
know.
they went away from the transfer station. Okay, so every Saturday people go down to the transfer station and throw their garbage, you know, whatever. They changed that. I think curbside pickup is a very good thing for any community because it really forces, you don't have to go so far to get rid of garbage. The dilemma is that to support that you have to sell trash bags.
Yeah. Small
communities do, and we do in Upton. We're always fighting over to increase the bag cost.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's one of the things, as you mentioned, we talked about the commercial basis. You know, the revenue that we get from that enables us to have programs like that.
Right.
That's why I love business in Milford. I really do. Things like TIFs. Some people get bothered by TIFs.
Now, I don't think they understand because
Well, that's
a TIF is giving you. They're saying, well, we're giving you something. We're giving you a break, but you're also getting tax revenue that you don't have right now.
There's no
It
question.
just takes a little longer to build. Like, why did Consigli need a tax break? They would have built it anyway. The answer is, first of all, no, they wouldn't.
I would agree
because
with
I
that
happen to
statement.
have a very good friend of mine who's on the youthful side, who works for them, who told me they had the property in Boston all picked out.
Yep. And let me tell you, you walk through Boston, all you do is see a Consigli sign, so to them it would be a convenience to have it. And also the other thing about a TIF is that people don't understand that TIFs go away over time, but also if a business changes hands, the TIF goes away.
Right.
Also, if the business goes out of business, the TIF goes away, and that building that they build is there forever. There is constant income. It's never going away. If for some reason they decide, oh, we're going to move to Upton, they can't pick up their building and walk to Upton with it and drop it there.
The greatest example of that
we'll
might
get
be
tax income forever on that.
I think might be the Homes Products building, whereas,
Yes.
you know, right after you gave it to Homes and they built the mega building,
Yep.
they got bought out and emptied it.
Exactly.
So I don't know, what did it sit vacant for 10 years?
Yeah.
9 years?
Yep.
But now you have Amazon occupying more than half the building,
Exactly.
which means you get
Jobs.
the full commercial, not only just jobs, you get the full commercial tax out of it.
Yep.
And the other half, I understand, was let.
Yep.
So it may have taken a while, but you've got that building back in productivity, paying the full rate.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm a big fan of TIFs. I think, you know, every town needs a nice commercial base, and we don't want to be completely commercial because, you know what, we have enough traffic in this town, so we need to weigh, you know, the positive and negatives. But when we have these spaces and we're able to, you know, develop them and bring in business and bring in revenue to the town of Milford, it certainly is a good thing. And I, you know, I'm
I wish that Upton had more business-friendly areas to build. You know,
It's hard. I mean, it's your geography sometimes dictates what you can do, and
well, people don't want to move
you
to a
know?
community that doesn't have water and sewer.
there's no question.
I mean, it's difficult to, you know, to run a business with. It depends on the business, you know.
there's no question.
Yeah.
The other issue I was just going to say is most towns don't have 2 exits on 495.
That's true.
And there is the old legendary story about how when Jack Davern was Speaker of the House, supposedly he drew the line to give it 2 exits. But, you know, I don't know if that's a myth or I don't know if that's truth, but you got 2 exits on 495, and that really helps.
And to be honest with you, I even consider it 4 exits. When you talk about the Bellingham exit at 126, people come in the back way through Pop and Cork to get that way.
Right.
And then you got to go up to Mendon that way, and you can easily access
And I used
Milford.
to get off at Hopkins.
And then the Hopkinton to come up South Street. So to me, to be honest with you, to have 4 exits on 495 within a 5-6 mile stretch, I think is, you know, it's huge.
Anyway.